So first of all, I'm Fajar. You can just call me Fajar, and I'm from Indonesia. I'm an English teacher like you. I don't know if Faisal and Amanda, are you an English teacher or what do you do in education? I mostly teach English online, and I teach English for academic, business purposes, exam preparations. I also do some projects in teacher training, materials creation, exam preparations, and also research project related to educational technology and of course teaching English. So I really believe that we're gonna have a lot of great discussion in
Oh,
this
okay,
session,
great,
especially with
Amanda.
Robert.
Amanda is in
Okay,
in
management and
Florida.
some
That's great.
amazing, amazing. Okay. And how about you, Robert? Would you like to introduce yourself a bit?
Sure, yes. So I'm Robert, and I've been based in the north of Spain for the last 8 years. Like Amanda, I also work on CELTA courses as a tutor and assessor, and I mainly teach face to face. Most of the students are face to face here in the north of Spain, my students, but I also do online teacher training. So it's like mostly in some face to face with the mini conferences that we do here. Because I'm the head of innovation and digital presence for a large language school in the north of Spain, and we have 130 teachers this year. So we do a lot of teacher training with them as well. It's really exciting.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Robert. It's really great to have Robert with us in this session and our first episode. So this is our first episode of our proving the future of our classroom or future proofing our classroom series. So hopefully we can have more and more discussion episodes. Okay, a different time, different days, and of course different topics. So kindly engage in our discussion, not only listening or watching, but also sharing your ideas, questions, and experiences. Okay, and please do again share where you are joining us from and let us know what you do in education. We're going to start with my presentation or a demonstration, which is related to AI, which was promised in our flyer. We're going to talk about a thing or two related to AI in teaching, English language teaching, and teaching in general. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and I need you to play this with me. Please say yes or no if you know about this or no. Do you know about Say What You See? Have you ever seen this website? Have you ever heard about it? Have you ever played with it? Yes or no in the chat. So the name of the website is Say What You Say. Okay, thank you, Robert. Honestly, no. No worries, that's why you're here. I'm glad that you're here. Now you will know. Okay, Wafa, no. Amanda, no. How about Faisal and then Ramisa Haris? Do you know about this website? Have you ever played with it? Okay, great. I'm feeling confident now. Kidding though. So this is basically an experiment by Google related to AI. Again, this is an experiment, and we're gonna play with this together. And you will also be able to play with this. This is free. You need a Google account, but that's it. Okay. So it says learn the art of image prompting with the help of Google AI. And again, the name is Say What You See. So what we'll do is to say what we see. Okay? We'll play with it and then I will try to explain a little bit and explore more on why we do this in our discussion today. And also I would like you to dig deeper into this activity and see what are the potential that can be, that we can get from this activity. I'm going to launch the experiment and here we have the experiment. It looks like a game anyway. Are you ready to learn the art of prompting? Now, the next question is, what do you know about prompting? Have you ever heard of the word prompting? Have you done prompting today? Yeah, sure, thank you. So would you like to share what you know about prompting, what you think is prompting. Common daily practice. Okay, common daily practice for what, Faisal? So, what does prompting have to do with? Key words and brief ideas to guidance. Okay, but can you tell like what prompting we are discussing in this topic? AI. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So how about the others? Okay, communicate with AI. The communication with AI. Okay, thank you. Right. So the prompting that we the prompting that we mean here is to prompt AI, or yeah, communicate with AI, instructing AI, or tell what you want to generative AI. Well, you name it, ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini. So that's the goal of this experiment. We want to see how we can actually do prompting through the experiment. Say what you say. We're going to start level 1, and here we have an image and a very short description. Our task is to include information about the medium, the subject, and the context of this image. Here we have an example, a painting. So this is a painting of a dog in a field. Well, basically it's like describing image. And to be honest with you, I like doing this in a writing lesson. So every time I have like writing lesson, I like to use this for a warm-up activity. Okay, we will play now. We'll play. Let's begin and see. Yeah, here we have an image on the left. This is the image that we have right now. So it's not, it's not loading. This is the image literally. Now what we need to do is we have to say what we see. So we see this image, you see the image, so try to say it. What do you see? So please help me. Put it in the chat because I need to put it in this box. The image that we see. Remember, the medium, the subject, the context. So it's not only like green and pink. A green and pink of what? What does it mean by green and I don't know, purple or pink? So try to put it in the chat on how would you or how can you describe this image that you see. I'll wait. Shades of color. Well, let's expand it. Shades of color of what? In what? A visual of colors in the background. What colors? Rainbow in what way? Okay, so remember the subject, a medium, the context. So basically, you want to describe it as if you want to tell someone that cannot see the image. Try to describe the image comprehensively to the details that another person can imagine it. Okay? We'll wait. So we have contrast of colors with different hues. Okay, visual of pastel colors from green to pink in a square. Awesome. Keep it coming, please. Okay, we have Getu, Zarina, and then Lobar, Putu. Thank you for joining. So we are currently playing with an experiment where you have to describe this image. All right, nice one. It's a square frame. It contains graded colors starting with green at the top left and then slowly morphing into magenta towards the bottom right. Okay, I think Robert wins this round. Okay, so just to make it quick, to see how it actually works, I'm pasting what Robert put in the chat and I click submit. Okay, generate. Okay. Oh, sorry. I think something with, okay, let's say if it's only accept American. I think the magenta is not recognized as English, which is weird. So let's put pink for now, okay? Let's put pink for now. Hope it works. Oh, wait, let me refresh. And let's see if we can get the same image. If we don't get the same image, we'll need you to do another round of writing. Okay, we have another image now. but I just make it quick this time. Okay, so sorry, Robert. I think it was my connection. Okay, so I'm gonna put like a very simple description this time. Let's say a square, a red square, okay, inside a bigger white square frame. I hope it works. If no, we're gonna do things another way. Okay, let's see I get the same image. Okay, so it's thinking for a second. I almost get it. Almost get it. So you see how it works. So the thing is that we need to describe the image so we can get a similar image. Basically like describing an image, but we need to make it into reality. We can see the image that we describe. So what do you think, teachers? How can this relate to your teaching activity or prompting activity? Okay, the importance of using clear, relevant, specific prompts. Yes. Thank you so much, Robert. So the idea of this experiment is to see if we can actually describe what we have in our mind. And it turns out it's not as easy as we think. And that's how somehow the AI, generative AI, works. Okay. Now imagine that you are prompting, describing something that you want, but it's not actually clear. Okay. And of course, the AI will come up with something that maybe it's not what you want. Now, let's say even with humans, we really need to be sure that what we describe is very detailed so they can understand what we mean. They can understand what we are trying to say. With prompting, you are basically communicating with machine, a robot or an AI, we say. They are basically only lines of codes. They're just lines of code. They don't actually have thinking. So what we want to do is to describe what we actually want to the very detail so that the AI will not assume. For example, because I only said a red square inside a bigger white square frame, okay? I didn't actually specify the color of the frame. So while the frame, I think it has a little bit of a brown here in the example image, but it's all white because that's what I said. Right? I said it's all white, so the AI can only come up with what I said. Okay. So what you want to do when you do prompting, whether it's ChatGPT, Gemini, when you instruct AI, you want to make sure that you know and you deliver what you want. So you can have an expectation. Every time the AI come up with something that you don't want to, you might want to actually review what you want. Is this what you asked for? Is this what you want? Okay. Again, this is a free experiment activity. Okay, and there will be more images. There will be even more abstract images. Okay, this is a great activity that I've been using in my classrooms, especially for writing lessons. So I send this link to my students, and they do it on their own screen, if it's online, especially. However, you can also adapt this into a different mode. For example, you have a group of students, a pair of students, writing their own description, okay, and then you can put it into this box. This can also work with other AI tools such as ChatGPT and Gemini. For example, if you work on it with ChatGPT, you try to search for an image or you create the image yourself using ChatGPT, and then you can ask your students to describe the image and put the prompt into ChatGPT and see if the ChatGPT can come up with the same image as you have. Okay, so this way we can see if we can actually describe what we see, describe what we have in our mind. Okay, so it both reflects our ability in communicating our ideas into writing or even speaking, right? Because it turns out that what we have in our mind is not always as the same thing that we can tell to others. Okay? So that's what we can learn from this experiment related to AI or also to teaching English, especially teaching writing. Again, this is free. You can go next and there will be more images. There will be more images. There will be more levels with more complex images that you can do in your classroom. Okay, free, only a Google account needed. For example, oh, this looks very delicious, but I don't think I have more time for this one. Okay, that's correct. If students are using the AI, check the age of consent. So my best suggestion is, as example, my students are adults. Most of the time, they're university students at least, or even sometimes they are workers. So they have their own consent. But let's say if it's a secondary school students, you might want to adapt this into a different mode. As example, again, you are the one who use the AI, and then students can work on the description. Okay? Or you can also use ChatGPT using the same idea. You generate the image on your own, or you search for an online image, and then you ask your students to describe the image. You use ChatGPT, for example, okay, to generate the image and see if the description will create a similar image to the image that they see. Okay, so there are so many potentials that we can do with this experiment. Not only about the AI, but again, how we can actually communicate what we have in mind into writing or speaking. Okay, and testing if our idea is actually delivered and understood by others, not only what we have in our imagination. Thank you so much. That's for my demo. Again, you can explore this tool on your own. It's free. You only need a Google account. It also works on mobile. Okay. So now we're going to move on to Robert with his amazing presentation on the same topic. Okay. So you will see how these experiments can relate into teaching and education. So Robert,
That's right. Okay,
your
thank
turn.
you. Let me just get it right. Okay, so basically the idea is, let me just one sec, move this here so that I can see you at the top. Now, this short presentation as well is called Shielding the Future, the 6 Pillars of AI Safeguarding. And I think this is super important, especially because you may not be aware of the fact that the EU AI Act has there are some new developments that are kicking into force on the 2nd of August, and that has implications, especially for those of us in the EU, but also to people outside, because many countries are now referring to the EU AI Act, as well as COPPA and FERPA in the US, to regulate AI, and AI is being regulated a lot more. So this is to give you, thinking of our learners, as I said, most of my learners are under 16. And for us, that's very important here in Spain, because as part of the EU, in the EU AI Act, students, the age of consent is 14. So as a teacher, I must be very aware of that. And we need to be aware of that. Before it was, so we need to make sure that whatever AI tool we use, we are aware of their local requirements. So let me get started. This is called the 6 Pillars of AI Safeguarding, because accountability can never, ever be placed on AI. And now that AI is being regulated more and more and more, as teachers and educators, then we are finally and ultimately responsible for whatever AI we use and how we use it in the classroom. So the agenda for today, room temperature, we're going to check. We're going to do a quick, no, I'm going to skip the warmer because I want to make it just shorter. We're going to look at my learning outcome for this mini session. We're going to look at the 6 pillars of AI safeguarding, some takeaways, and then Q&A, okay? Please use the chat box for any questions that you may have as I'm sharing this presentation, and then we'll look at them at the Q&A. And hopefully, finally, at the end, after today with Fajar's and my presentation, you will be able to safeguard your learners and then help them use language in a very interactive and also enhancing way, making sure that if you're using AI, then that we're using it not only to substitute an activity that we could do with pen and paper, but an activity that would actually enhance or redefine what we're doing. So the room temperature in the chat box, how are you feeling about this session? Curious, using 1 or 2 adjectives. Let me open my chat box so that I can see it, see your answers. So how are you feeling about this session using 1 or 2 adjectives? Are you feeling curious? Thank you, Fajar. Excited, nervous, uncertain. How are you feeling about this session? Let's see in the chat box. Anyone, just to make sure that you're still there and listening to us. Let's see. Amanda, interested. Good. That's good to know. I hope that what we're sharing is going to give you lots of ideas for your work as a tutor and also as a teacher. Let's see. Anybody else? Okay, I'm just going to move on. Wafa, thank you. Good. Thank you, Amanda and Wafa and Fajar. And one thing that you want to learn in this session, what would be one thing that you'd like to go away with? Just one thing. The purpose behind asking you guys to share things in the chat box is to see what everyone is thinking, because very often we may be thinking, oh, what I'm thinking is not that important. And when we see that other people are thinking the same or feeling the same, it helps us feel like, okay, we're in the same boat. So we're all in this together. Okay, Wafa. So the others, one thing you want to learn in this session using AI with students safely? Absolutely. Thank you, Fajar. Some ideas, especially I think ideas for, I hope that I can share. I'm going to share a checklist that I put together so that as a teacher and with the teachers that I work with, that people can have it at hand so that we can always check the AI that we're using. Okay, thank you, Getu. Right, let me share my learning outcome. By the end of this session, you will have evaluated raw text-based and visual Gen AI outputs critically using a tried and tested AI safeguarding checklist to inform you your AI classroom use. I'll share that checklist with you at the end after the Q&A, okay? So that you can take it with you in the classroom, to the classroom. So what do you think are the 6 pillars of AI safeguarding? Any ideas in the chat box? There are no right or wrong answers. That's the whole point. And I'm asking you to activate prior knowledge. Maybe you may know some of them. You may have heard of some of them. There's lots of talking about safeguarding. So any ideas? Let's see in the chat box. There are 6, so it could be just, I have 6 single words. Good. Okay, Fajar, that's one of them. Privacy is definitely one. Data privacy is definitely one. What about the others? Let's see in the chat box. Anybody else? So we have data privacy. What else could be? And Amanda, safety. Good. So I'm going to share some the letters. Let's see if you can guess. A, what do you think is one of them? Autonomy, possible. Wafa, thank you so much. Thank you, Amanda. We have R, is possible. It's not autonomy, but it's it starts with an A. So thank you so much for contributing, Wafa. What about R? Any ideas? What could R stand for? And this is just to activate prior knowledge to get those juices flowing before we actually look at it, and then they're more meaningful than just listening to me. Reliability, ooh, very close, Wafa. Thank you so much. S, right, Fajar. Okay, right, also possible. What about S? When we're thinking about using AI in the classroom and we say, is this S? Any ideas? Amanda had mentioned safety, so is this safe, possible? Security, okay, very, very possible, very close. Good. What about B? We say, is this activity B, or is this AI output, this image or this text that I created? Is it B? Any ideas with the B? Is it B? Let's see. What about C and D? Those are the last ones. We're going to look at those in together now. So this is just to get us all thinking about things. B, C, D. Well, D is for data privacy, which Fajar had mentioned before. So that's great. So let's move on. The first one is accuracy. So we should be asking ourselves, before now, very important to understand that because of the age of consent of my learners and the big majority of our learners, I work for IH La Cunza in San Sebastian. We're part of the IHWO, the International House World Organization Network. We're also Equals accredited. And most of our students, we have about 5,000 students. Most of our students are 16 and below. Therefore, for us, it's very important for me to act as a filter. I'm the human in the loop. Everything that AI produces is being filtered by the teacher. And this is one of the new EU AI Act enforcements, mandatory requirements kicking in on the 2nd of August. From the 2nd of August, any AI output must be checked by the teacher or whoever produces it. So accuracy. Then we have R for relevance, S for suitability, B for bias, C for copyright, and D for data privacy. So I'm going to leave some questions for you. I don't want you to answer them, but I want you to think about the fact that while we are producing AI for the classroom, then we should be asking ourselves, in terms of accuracy, is the content factually correct? Or are there errors in outdated references that need verifying? Or if you're teaching other things other than language, so does the mathematical or factual logic hold up when checked against trusted subject materials? Remember that AI does not understand our queries. It is a stochastic parrot. That means it makes the most highly likely prediction for the next word. Okay, that's why it is a confident liar. It can lie very confidently because it doesn't know. So it will predict the most likely word that comes next, which means that as teachers and tutors, we must triple check everything to ensure that it is accurate. Relevant. So does the material directly align with my specific learning outcomes and lesson aims? If we're using if it is an activity that we could do with pen and paper, then there's no point in using AI, like with any other technology. Does the output make assumptions about an audience or setting that differ from my actual context? Suitability, is the tone, the language, and approach accessible and age appropriate for my specific learners? Does this material avoid distressing or overly complex content that would be unsuitable for my classroom? Quick example, the content is great, but for example, I want to use adjectives with my A2 pre-intermediate 10 to 12-year-old class, and the adjectives are great, but they're not appropriate for my class because they are suitable for adults or a university group, right? So is it suitable or overly complex? Bias, does the AI output rely on cultural, gender, or demographic stereotypes? Remember that large language models are trained on data which is historically biased, right? So it's not that AI is biased because it wants to be biased, but it is because of the data. Therefore, we need to be aware of this and make sure that we change that narrative. And this is what we're going to look at today. Are diverse representations included fairly, realistically, and accurately in the generated material? In terms of copyright, have I ensured that no published copyrighted materials like course books were uploaded into the AI tool? Please, please, please make sure that any materials or PDFs or scans that you upload into an AI tool are either in the public domain or your own work and not a scan from copyrighted materials unless you have written permission from the author, the publishing company, to use them and to upload them onto AI. Otherwise, we would be infringing copyright. Also, am I respecting intellectual property and ensuring the AI-generated content is free to use and adapt in my classroom? So, for example, something I do when I look at the course book and I see that maybe that article is not very relevant for my students is that instead of using it or scanning it, I know my students. That's what the AI doesn't know. AI doesn't know the context, doesn't know the students. I do. So I have that advantage, and I use that to weaponize AI. So I may take the topic. What's the topic of that page on the course book? It is a day out, for example, a picnic, or asking for help, or checking in a hotel. Well, I take the topic, which is public domain, and then knowing what I know about my students in my class and my level, then I use AI to help me create a text, an article, or a reading text, or activities that are more suitable for my students, right? In this case, I am respecting intellectual property, because some people say, well, I don't scan it, I just type it up. No, if we take it, that's exactly the same. Then data privacy to finish before we move on to the practical example that I want to share with you. Have I ensured that no personally identifiable information, so PII, or sensitive data about my students has been entered into the prompt? This is super important. Does the AI tool comply with local data protection laws such as GDPR and my institution's data policy? So now institutions from the 2nd of August are required, is not optional anymore. Institutions are required to provide AI literacy training. They are required to check, to have someone, whoever produces any information that is going to be public facing, there must be the name of who produced it or edited it, so that that person is accountable. So this is really, really important, because it's going to make a big difference. And so finishing with those 6 pillars and the questions, this is the experiment, or not an experiment. This is what I did with a group of A2 pre-intermediate students. And it's a class of 12 primary students, 11 to 12-year-olds at CFR A2 level, mixed ability, speakers of Spanish, Basque, and Arabic as their first language, my own class. And we have 2 51-minute lessons a week. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to revise and use adjectives for physical description. And at the same time, I wanted to critically evaluate AI-generated images for diverse people to raise awareness of AI bias. I wanted to use that lesson to also give them a little bit of AI literacy basics, right? So I created this visual. And as you can see on the side, on the left, I have the 6 pillars. So in the chat box, have a look at that picture and tell me, do you think is the content accurate, factually correct? Are there errors or outdated references? Is it relevant for my students now that you know my context? Is it suitable? Is the tone, the language level, and approach accessible for my group? Is there any kind of bias in that picture? Does the AI output rely on cultural, gender, or demographic stereotypes? What about copyright and data privacy? So in the chat box, what do you think is the problem with this picture? Any ideas in the chat box? There are no right or wrong answers. We're all here to work together, okay? So this is just to make you think. That's my aim, to make you think and reflect about what we use and what we see every day in the classroom. Any ideas about what the issues might be with this visual, which may look very innocent, but it may have some hidden issues? Fajar, copyright? Possible. Well, possible. For example, in this case, I use my own prompt, right? So in that sense, I have the copyright, so there are no copyright issues. Wafa, bias, absolutely. So the main issue here is bias, because this is the initial picture. Now, how different is this picture? How different is this one? This is the first one. And then after I realized that there was a little bit of bias in there. I crafted slightly differently the prompt, and it gave me this one. How different is this? Look, pay attention to the men and the women. How different is this? So in the initial one, all the white women are very slender and the men are ripped, right? The morphology, that's right, the age, the attitude, lobar, wafa. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Ideal, that's the word. It gives a false representation of the world we live in. Are all black women fat? No. Are all white women and men, do they all look like that? No, we don't. I don't look like that. I would like to look like that, but I don't look like that, right? So very important. So I crafted it again and I said, okay, make the woman look a little bit overweight and the man not as fit as the other one. Still, I think there are issues. What are still the issues with this picture? Because it's still not very representative. And I asked my students these questions. First, we talked about adjectives. Then I made them think about that. And not a real world picture possible, the morphology. So what about this one? It looks very different, right? Because then we have someone with who is has a disability, someone who is blind. Then we have someone who's a Latino woman. We also have someone who's an Aboriginal. So people from different cultures as well, a girl with a headscarf, to try and represent everyone. And yet there are still issues because Black women and Latino women, they're not all fat, but this is the bias, the inherent bias in the data, right? So moving on, this was with Gemini. And then I used this one with ChatGPT. I said, I want a group of teenagers at the beach because I want to practice adjectives for physical description. And the initial one came out as that with everyone looks perfect apart from the boy, right? But are all women like that and all guys like that? It is not realistic, right? So I went and said, okay, give me someone, one of the girls is a little bit overweight, right? Of course, this is not an ideal picture, but it was a great opportunity for me to then have other scenarios, right? Where more cultural differences, skin color, body shapes, religions or ethnic backgrounds were represented to have the students think about it. So first we focused on language, we spoke about it, we revised the adjectives, and then I said in the second 20 minutes, I asked them these questions. Are the images accurate? Why or why not? And they spoke in pairs. This is 11 and 12-year-olds. What is missing from image 1? What's present in image 2? Is there anything missing, right? I was asking these questions. Is there anything missing, still missing? What is still missing? What does AI know about us and about me and our class and our city? What can we do to help AI to output to be better? Are all Black and Latino women fat? Are all white men fit? What do we call it when we have stereotypes or specific non-positive ideas about specific people and specific groups of people, right? So those were Amanda's question. What reaction and response do you get from them at that age? It was great, Amanda. I was a little bit skeptical because I thought this is not going to work. Maybe they can't. But they said, for example, with the first question, are the images accurate? They say no, because they are both daylight. And it's never always daylight, right? Or they said, we have 3 beaches here where I live. So they said, oh, it's great. It's like La Concha beach, but like we don't have palm trees. So they were making connections with where they live, which is great because they were starting to make those connections. And then I said, okay, but look at the people. Let's forget about the geographical location because that's fantastic. Well done. But what about the people? And they started saying, well, not everyone looks like that. And I said, okay, but what do you mean looks like that? They couldn't articulate it in English because they're A2. And I said, say it in Spanish. What is it? They all look like perfect in the first picture, which is great to see that for them, this is also perfection because we're all different. And I said, okay, and comparing the two I started, after I was asking the different questions, they started coming with, well, my brother is not like, doesn't look like that. My brother is, one of the boys said, my brother is darker. The other one said, my father is whiter in skin. So they started thinking about that. And when I said, what does AI doesn't know? And they said that, it was, I don't know, it was like an aha moment for them because they said, okay, well, it doesn't know that these people are not from here. And I said, what do you mean that they're foreign? They said, no, like we have more different, this is what they said, we have more different people here. We're not as the same. We have people, we can see people who wear a headscarf, we have people who are fat, people who are not fat, people who are toned, etc. So it was a great opportunity for them to realize that, and then to they use ChatGPT and Google Gemini. And when I asked them, this is not this lesson, but before, do you use it? And they said, yes. When do you use it? Well, I use my parents' accounts. They shouldn't really be using their parents' accounts because they can be exposed to, they're vulnerable and they could be exposed to not very good information. Anyways, so this is how I did it. It really worked well. It was one of those times when I was extremely happy to see that, we can trust them. They're intelligent beings. They just need to be asked the right questions. So we're going to move on. That's the end of it. If anyone has any questions, we're going to move on to the Q&A with Fajar and my session. Before we move on, just the takeaways. I want you to think about this and you share it later. We would like you to share one thing you're taking away from Fajar's session and my session. We're going to share a link in the chat box for you to give us feedback about today's session. I believe in, we need to model as teachers giving credit. So the icons that I use are from the Noun Project. The visuals that you saw, I made with Google Gemini and ChatGPT. And there's an AI statement, transparency statement. AI was used at ideation stage to brainstorm ideas, which were then checked, selected, discarded, and or edited to match our context and the writer's own experience. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing now, and we can then launch our Q&A. Fajar.
Amazing. Yep. Thank you so much, Robert. I believe that's what we actually also need in using AI these days. So it's not only about, okay, prompt this, prompt that, create this, create this. We have had a lot of sessions talking about using AI to create things, but what we need to be aware is also how we create them, why we create them, and the limitations of the conduct of those creation, and can they be safe for our students? Are they ethical? Okay, and again, everything should be based on what our students need, and of course it means their safety. Now I think we're going to open our discussion session again. This is not only for Robert and I to present, but also for everybody joining this session to share their ideas, questions, and also insight on this topic, or teaching English in general, or teaching in general. You can raise your hand, and then you can unmute if you have any questions or you want to share your ideas. You will be unmuted if you want to speak, or you can just put your questions in the chat. And no certificate for this session, as this is a discussion session.
That's right. If you don't want to take the mic, you can the microphone, open it up. You can ask your question in the chat box, and then we can try and answer it, sharing always from our own experience.
Okay. So while waiting for the other to ask questions, I have something in mind that I've always asked to fellow practitioners in this area, is the use of, we call them now wrapper tools. As I believe many teachers here joining are familiar with them. For example, Diffit. I believe you have ever heard of that. Magic School, and then Brisk. They are like useful tools. They're great. And even Trinity College London, I've been reviewing their AI tool. They have the NoteLab English, which is similar to Brisk, Diffit, and Magic School. They are like, we can say, specific AI tool for teaching English lesson plan or teaching English lesson creation. So that, what do you think about it, Robert? What do you think of these wrapper tools that is actually specified for teaching English?
That's right. Yes. Well, it's very interesting that you mentioned that, because recently I was giving a webinar on AI use and talking about the three main uses that have been identified for AI use in education, which are teacher mediated, student-facing use, and direct learner use. And when talking about lesson planning, I think that it's really interesting because, for example, those tools, those AI tools are great, but I think it depends on the audience. For example, teachers who are experienced and know a little bit about AI, they probably prefer to have an iteration in a conversation with AI and design their own materials, which is most of the time my case. Teachers who maybe are experienced or not very much experienced, but they have little experience of AI, those AI tools can help them get started, because one of the characteristics of those AI tools is that they all have lots of templates with lots of ready ideas that then the teacher needs to tweak. And I think that is absolutely useful. However, something that is not a criticism, but is something that makes me think and reflect about is, as a teacher, there's something called the prompting tax, right? So, which is the opposite of what people say. Oh, AI is going to help me save time. Yes, if used correctly, it's going to help me save time. But what if I start using one of those tools and whatever it produces needs so much tweaking that the time I was going to save creating a lesson plan is actually spent on retweaking the initial idea. So it's something to I think to consider, because it might be faster to do it yourself directly in some cases, while in others, then it does, make sense to use those tools. Now, I have nothing against those tools. Obviously, I use, for example, EdCafe. I use Diffit. What I'm saying is, we need to, what you said at the beginning, prompts need to be really, really useful so that we don't have to spend double the time tweaking the output. Because remember that it's super important that we cannot just go for a lesson plan or an activity, print it, grab it, or then just display it on the IWB in the classroom. We shouldn't really be doing that. We need to be the human in the loop. We are accountable for AI output. And especially if we have minors or people underage, depending on your local legislation, then we need to be the filter. We need to filter that AI output before it reaches the students.
Awesome. That's very comprehensive. Thank you so much, Robert. Okay, do we have questions or ideas from the participants? We have 5 minutes to go. And I've also put a feedback form. Again, it's not a certificate form, it's a feedback form, because we are planning to run this every month. So if you have any feedback, you want to request on a topic, kindly fill in the form and then let us know in that form what you want us to discuss in our next episode. And I would like to share a little bit about what I mentioned. So I was asking about this one to Robert. So again, we call these wrapper tools. Again, for those who are familiar with Magic School, Diffit, Brisk. Now, institutions like the Trinity College London, they are also experimenting with these tools. So this is a currently free, I don't know until when, but this is currently free lesson planning generator from the Trinity College London. I've been experimenting with it and it works very well creating the lesson. But again, as Robert mentioned, sometimes there are always this and that we need to tweak. We need to check, okay, it doesn't actually, I actually don't need this. But it's working well so far for a free tool somehow. So it generates your worksheet, it generates audio for you, and even presentation slide. And for those who also want to experiment with this, again, this is free. You can search for NoteLab English or Trinity NoteLab. So they even generate like presentation slides like this only by prompting. But again, our questions and our concern is not only, oh, this save us time, but is it? Is it really saving us time or just creating things that we don't actually need? Again, this is free. We will send also a follow-up email to the email that you use for registration. Even Cambridge recently is also experimenting with wrapper tools. So they put it in the Teachers Hub. It's free. I don't know until when, but you can create an account and then you can find this AI lesson planner. And as I remember, you can create up to 40 lesson plans a month. Okay, and basically it's like prompting, but it's guided. And if you want to know like this kind of tool, they have like ChatGPT or other models in the background. They don't really create their own AI, so they have like another AI model in the background, and they are pre-prompted. This is free. Basically this is prompting, but it's guided prompting. Okay, like you put topic, you put your age of your students, the CFR level that you want, and then you create it, and it come with lesson plans. But again, most of the time we need to recheck it again and tweak it, and so on and so on. Okay. All right. So, anything that you would like to add, also, Robert?
No, I think that we've covered pretty much everything we wanted to cover.
Amazing, amazing. So again, thank you so much, everyone, joining our first episode. So again, this is our very first episode. We are really looking forward to seeing you again in our next episode with questions and ideas. And kindly fill in the feedback form if you have a request for our next episode. While we don't actually provide you with a certificate, I really want to show you where you can get a certificate, which is probably would be more valuable if we provide you with a certificate, because we don't have actually a right to give you a certificate. So this is a good free course from Microsoft. The name of the course is AI for Educators. Again, we will send this link to you on a follow-up email. It's free. You only need a Microsoft account, and it's a course. So you will learn. I took these courses like, I don't know, 2 years ago, and it's a very good introduction. It's not only about using AI, but also the research behind AI, how AI actually works, and how we can use it in teaching. So the name of the course is AI for Educators, and if you complete the course, you can also get a free certificate from Microsoft. So you can find your certificate here in your achievement. And there are so many other courses that you can also find in this website. Not only about teaching, but also mostly about Microsoft products. That's what you want to be aware of also, that this is a product of a technology company. That is from Facebook. I also want to share one from Google. This is also free. I know that Robert also took this one. So this is nice. You only need a Google account, and they have 2 contacts for higher education and also for K-12. So you will watch videos, tutorials, and then if you complete the exam, the quiz, you will get a digital badge, which is nice to show your professional development credibilities or credentials. These are free. We will send the access to them and a follow-up email.
Yes. And just one thing, in the chat box, I also share the checklist that I mentioned as a PDF that you can print and keep on the side whenever you, or on the screen whenever you are creating materials, just to make sure that you are safeguarding your students and yourself. Because remember, we are accountable.
Thank you so much, Robert. Again, we will send them all the things that we shared, the checklist and the links to the free courses, and also the feedback form. And also, be advised that this recording will be uploaded to YouTube. So if you want to request for something, as example, you want your name to be blurred, you kindly email us at cs@englishtechsolutions.com at gmail.com, which we will email you first, and then you can also reply to our email. And again, thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you in our next episode, hopefully next month. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Afternoon or evening. Bye.
Yeah,
Bye, everyone.
have a nice weekend. Take care.